Hi everyone, welcome to the first video on my channel. This is game 1 from the Keres Memorial Tournament, and this is the first chess tournament that I've ever played in. And I had a lot of fun, and it's what basically prompted me to make this YouTube channel, along with it being a project for grade 12. But I wanted to do it anyways. Basically, I just want to show my thought processes, my games, what a game of an unrated player looks like at a low level, and basically just my experience throughout the entire tournament. And this is my first game ever. I sat down in the playing hall, I was very nervous. I had only been playing online up to this point, so I was actually very concerned about how my board vision would be, because you're used to this aerial view, and having that slanted 45 degree, whatever degree angle on the pieces, I was very worried that I was going to be missing things and not playing as well. But thankfully, as soon as I started playing, I realized, nope, it's just normal chess. And they had nice big boards. It was definitely catered towards smaller people as well, younger kids, as there was a lot of those. So the stress started to go down right away. And especially after the first few moves, I realized, you know what, my opponent's in the same boat as well. I could tell he was nervous, so we just played chess. So I'll show you the game. So I started with the Reti. I usually play the Reti just to throw people off, especially on blitz. Sometimes you play knight f3 and people don't realize it's just a normal move. Normally I just transpose into normal d4, d5 positions. I don't normally play the g3 and fianchetto, the King's Indian attack. I want to learn it, but I haven't, so I usually just play d4, d5. My opponent played c5, which is basically what happens when you play a Sicilian player against the Reti. They just try to turn it into a Sicilian defense. I just continue normally e3. This is normally what I do, trying to play d4. They take, and then I play c4, and we have a normal game. He played knight c6, and I chose a different setup here. I played b3, just trying to fianchetto my bishop because I knew it was normal. I haven't played this before. I don't know opening theory in this case. I just know some of the ideas, like d4, c4, c4, maybe developing the bishop here, maybe to d3, castling. So I thought it was just going to be a normal game. He played d5 here, which, you know, they say if you can play d5 in the Sicilian, you're good, but this isn't really a Sicilian. It's still a fine move, though, just taking the center. But since he played d5, I decided to pin the knight. And this is common in Rossolimo Sicilians, where you play bishop b5 and just try to trade the knight here, which is what happens. He unpins, not wanting to damage his pawn structure, but I just castle here, and he chases my bishop away. And I just decided to trade because it's not bad, and this is actually good for white because you have the opportunity to play knight e5 here, and basically you get the bishop because if it drops back, you always have the opportunity to take, and if he blocks with the queen, you still take, and if you play something like bishop e5, then even c4 is probably possible here as well. Yeah, it's already +2 for white because the bishop has to drop back again, and now you have the luxury of taking, playing d4 and building up a big center. But that didn't happen. I missed knight e5. Instead I played bishop b2, and I guess my opponent was very scared of knight e5 because he played f6 here, which I thought was not a great move. Unfortunately, I didn't know how to punish it properly, but it's actually being played in 1991 by two 2500 rated players, so you know what, maybe my opponent knew something I didn't. I just continued normally with d4, e6 is a normal move, and c4 here. I just wanted to start chipping away at the center, here. This is common in d4, d5 positions to play c4 and c5, and here he played bishop d6, and I missed an opportunity here to play c captures on d5, something, either the bishop or the pawn recaptures. Take on c5, bishop takes on c5, and then play knight d4 here, which is its positional play. I'm threatening to fork the queen and the bishop here, so most likely bishop would take, I would recapture, and basically this pawn here is fixed, and I can build up some attack on it with knight c3, maybe move the queen, put one of my rooks here, and basically I'll just enjoy a good position with some long-term pressure, and my position doesn't really have any weaknesses. My bishop is, my light squared or dark squared bishop is pretty good for now. f6 kind of stunts it, but f6 also weakens the king, so it would have been nice to go for this. I didn't see this. Instead I took on c5 first. He recaptures with the bishop, and I didn't take on d5. Instead I played this fancy move, knight g5, and I had been calculating this over the past 2 or 3 moves, seeing if it would work in advance. And it actually does, because this is what I saw. If pawn takes, then I win the rook here, and I don't get my bishop trapped, so I actually do win the rook. He gets a knight, I'm up the exchange. And it also prepares queen h4 plus check, which is not a devastating move because he can just play g6, but g6, f6, e6, his position would have some weaknesses, and this is similar to what ended up happening. He played queen d7 because I was also threatening to win a pawn here and fork the bishop and the queen. And this is my next plan, was to play queen h4, and I knew he would play g6. Otherwise he'd have to move the king, and then his king would be stuck in the center. I just drop back, now attacking the center pawn. He still cannot take because it is the pawn is pinned to the rook, and he just dropped his bishop back. And this is how far I got in my calculations. Oh, sorry, after queen f3, attacking this pawn, and I didn't really know, or sorry, not attacking this pawn, but just getting out of the way of the scope of the bishop. And I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really know what he was going to do. He ended up just moving the bishop back to c6, and I could have gone back to h3 here. It's one of the computer's favorite moves, but it probably would have led to a repetition or an opera of a draw, so I decided not to go for that. Instead I took on d5. He took back with the bishop, and here I definitely should have played queen h3, and because now he doesn't have the opportunity to go back to there. The pawn is guarded, but I have the, if he does go back to c6, I can take on e6 here. So queen h3 would have been much better than what I played. I'm not really sure why I didn't play this, because even after queen h3 and he doesn't move the bishop, he plays rook d1, I can just develop naturally with knight c3, and I'm going to get this pawn back, or I'm going to damage the structure, and this king's going to be stuck in the middle of the board. And even if he takes here, because now it's not pinned, it's even stronger actually, because I attacked the queen and attacked the rook. So queen h3 would have been a lot better than what I played, which was e4. This basically, he just retreats the bishop, and now my pawn is pinned. And now, after my next move, which is rook d1, which was a bad move because he gets to play e5, and now he is threatening to take the knight because it's no longer pinned, there's a pawn in the way, so I'm forced to retreat, and now he is starting to move his way towards me, and I'm kind of on the retreat. I do still have this hole on d5, which is good, and I use it. I plop the knight in there, but he just takes it, and I took with the rook because I wanted to double up. He anticipated this and also put a rook on the d-file. I put my rook there, and we traded again. And I didn't really want to take with the pawn, because then you can always, it's very easy for him to go and attack it. You can always reroute the knight to blockade it as well. So I didn't go for this, although maybe I should have, as you'll see later. Instead I took with the rook, and he played rook d1. And I didn't really want to give him the full open d-file for his queen, because if I take, he takes back. I cannot, here I'll show it. If he takes back, I don't have queen d1 or something like this because it's undefended. And if I go here, if we check with the engine, it's already slightly better for black, plus 0.6. His dark squared bishop is very strong, whereas mine is a little bit stunted by these pawns on f6 and e5. So I didn't go for this. I instead went for g3, which is a very bad move. What I should have played is queen d1, and I saw this move after I played g3, and I thought to myself, oh, I should have played queen d1. But I didn't. And this is bad because he can simply take on d5, I take back, and something like knight f5. And this pawn, though it is a pass pawn, it's not a strong pass pawn because it's on a light square. I have a dark squared bishop, and it's going to take a long time for my knight to reroute to even get to this pawn. So he should have taken right away on d5, but he didn't. Instead, we both gave our king some breathing room. The same idea still applies. He should take on d5 here, but instead he plays b6, which gives me the opportunity to finally play queen d1, which I should have played in the first place. So now I'm threatening to take the rook, and I really did expect him to trade here, but instead he moved his rook up to d6, so now it's defended by the bishop, and he was really just telling me, okay, what do you want to do now? And I wasn't sure. I played a3, trying to go b5 to trap the bishop, and I thought this was good. Maybe he has to, maybe this is, because he cannot play b5 because I take the, or no, he can play b5 because my queen is pinned to my rook, but I wanted to dislodge this bishop. But I underestimated the power of a5, and a3, all it's done is it's given this bishop a target now because it's on a dark square. So that didn't really achieve much. I started rerouting my knight because I didn't have a better plan. He played a waiting move with queen d6. I played g3, and now, or no, it wasn't a waiting move. He wanted to recapture on d5 when I took everything, and now my position is very bad because I do not have a way to defend this pawn properly, and his king is simply going to march forward. He's going to make a pass pawn on the king's side, and I am going to slowly get suffocated. I try to go and defend the pawn with my knight, but this allows bishop d4, and he is going to get the pawn because he will trade bishop for knight, and then as it's on a light square, my dark squared bishop has no way of getting to it. Pardon me, sorry. So I did what I thought was best. I brought my knight back to get out of the pin for the bishop, but he just ignored it and took the pawn. I tried to save my bishop because I realized the more minor pieces I have on the board, the better. I'm now also threatening to take on e5 because then the bishop x-rays the knight and I could take it after so I basically win a pawn. But he just moved his knight back, which is probably what he wanted to do anyways, to reroute it into the game onto the queen side. I brought my king forward, and he pushed it back. Oops, sorry. And this is when I started getting really nervous. I realized, okay, I'm definitely much worse, and if we check with the engine, I am. It is -4. He is completely winning. His pass pawn is very strong in the middle. But I thought, this is my first game. Oh, pardon me. I'm not going to resign on the first game, so I kept playing on. I gave him a check. He really should take this and trade off a set of minor pieces, because even though my bishop is attacking this pawn, something like b5 is completely good for him, and even on bishop b6, there's just a4, and this trade is very good for him because this pawn is going to win him the game, and now the knight has access to the c4 square, and it can come attack this pawn, and it's actually not very, it's very hard for my bishop to go and defend it. So he didn't go for that though, thankfully. He just played king c5, just a little bit of a waiting move, maybe preparing b5, b6, or b5, b4, or a4. I tried to chip away, maybe win a pawn here, although this doesn't work because you can always take the knight. But and then I moved my bishop up because after h5, I wanted to play b4 plus check, and this doesn't really accomplish anything because though the d5 square is covered, his king can just go back to defend the knight, and I haven't really achieved much. But like I said, I was just trying to hold on, keep making moves, make him think, and make solid moves, and make him come to me. And I'm not going to force the issue. It's his job to prove his advantage here. So we traded a set of pawns on the king's side. I dropped my knight back, not only attacking the bishop, but also defending mine. And when he drops his back, my pawn is still defended by the knight on a3. So I brought my bishop all the way back. He brought his knight forward to attack my pawn, and I just pushed it up. And here he played knight b2, trying to attack the pawn. And this is a good move because there isn't a way for me to defend the pawn, so I just pushed it up. And he surprised me here, and he took, and I took back, because if he had not taken, I really have no hope, because he can always just create another passed pawn like this, and the king can reroute, his knight can drop back, and he can easily scoop this pawn up. So taking actually helped me because it started to liquidate some things, and now it's, as more material comes off the board, it becomes a little bit harder for him to support this pawn, because now all the attention is on the king's side. I don't have to worry about the queen's side anymore. So he brought his knight back, attacking my bishop. I swung it around to the far end of the board, maybe coming to protect the pawn on f4, maybe claiming this diagonal down the center of the board by coming to f6. He brought his king to the middle. His king is still pretty blocked out. He has to move his knight to get into c4. My knight does a good job of covering d4. I brought my bishop back here in case he wanted to put his bishop there, because now it's defended twice by the knight and my bishop. He brought his back though, attacking this pawn, and now we see that idea I mentioned by putting the bishop on g5. And still, I'm just telling him, come to me. He hasn't done so much to improve his position yet. In fact, it's only minus 1.5 now, whereas he had a minus 4 position, so I'm slowly clawing my way back. And here he played knight b2. And I guess this move does have the intention of coming to d3. Oops, sorry. Coming to d3 and then attacking this pawn twice. But I simply played knight e1. So in the event of knight here, I can take this pawn back, or I could have also defended it, depending if he moved his king up first and then played knight d3. But that didn't happen. He played a pointless move, in my opinion, king c4. I'm really not sure what this move achieves. Or actually, it does defend the knight here, so now he is threatening to go here, but I followed through with my idea of playing knight g4, or knight g2 anyways. And now he completely threw away his winning chances and played knight d3. After he played such a good game, whittling down my position, coming forward, he blundered here, because my threat of going knight g2 was to play knight e3 plus check anyways and fork this pawn. And I get this pawn, and even though this pawn drops as well, I can simply take, and I calculated out that I can play knight g7, attacking this pawn. Now it's important to note that I cannot take this pawn right away. Let's say he plays something. If I play knight captures on h4, then I'm completely losing. No, I'm sorry, it's a draw. After knight g7, if he plays king d4 and I take, then I'm completely losing, because he can go bishop d5 and my knight is completely restricted by the bishop. So a very subtle difference. After knight g7, king d5 and knight captures on h5 is a complete draw, because my king gets forward and now my knight has a square. But if I play knight captures, or if he plays king d4 and knight captures on g7, I'm completely losing now, because my knight is blocked out. And this pawn, it cannot get to a square to support my knight. But after knight g7, he played king d4, and we agreed to a draw. No, he didn't play king d4. We agreed to a draw in this position, because after this move, I'm also threatening here, so he has to move the king. So yeah, that was my first game. I was decently happy with the draw, especially after realizing my position was very bad. I should have lost this game, and I told my opponent afterwards, I said, good game, you played better than me, you deserve to win. But, you know, that's how it goes sometimes. I just kept playing, I didn't resign, and I was playing this game away from home in a town. It's about an hour and a half drive away, so I had the day to myself. And I just went, ate my lunch in the park, went for a walk, my legs were sore, this was a long game. And I just got ready for my round 2 game, which you will see next video. So yeah, thank you for watching my first ever tournament game. I'm still technically undefeated. And I'll see you for round 2. Thanks for watching.